hybrid work.
Hello and welcome to our special discussion. CNBC-TV18 and Jabra present Making Hybrid Work. I'm your host, Paramita Chatterjee. Now, the office, as we used to know it a few years ago, no longer exists. Post the pandemic, companies are transitioning to the hybrid model, where employees have the flexibility to work from home, come to the office, or basically work from anywhere. Now, in this new world, how are companies transitioning to the demands of the hybrid model, where they need the right technology solutions, which allows companies to ensure that they are able to provide employees with the flexibility they desire without compromising on their productivity and outcomes? Let's find out a little bit more about making hybrid work with our guest today on the show, Richa Nanavati, Chief Information Officer, Mahindra Group, Dhaval Pandya, CIO, Piramal Enterprises, KV Deepu, Senior President and Head of Operations and Customer Service at Bajaj Alliance, and Peter Jayasilan, who's Vice President, South Asia and Public Sector at Jabra. It's awesome to have you all, and we're talking about the hybrid world, but actually it's great to have you all here in person after a long time, and that's what the pandemic has done to us, right? We are sometimes at home, sometimes right here in the studios. So, Richa, let me start with you. And, we all know what happened in the pandemic. Companies were rushing to quickly adapt. And now we are sort of in this post-pandemic world where we are trying to get used to this new normal of sometimes at home and sometimes there in person. So how have you as a company, and particularly as the CIO at Mahindra Group, really adapted to this new hybrid world?
If we talk about the pandemic and even pre-pandemic, technology always had ability to be operated from various places. But what pandemic has done is changed customer expectations. They've altered forever, I believe. I want to give a quick example. We launched our Scorpio N, our latest SUV, on 30th July. We sold 1 lakh SUVs in first 30 minutes. Think about the car buying process that it used to be. Right? You go to a dealership, you test drive, you like something, you negotiate. If not, go somewhere else.
I mean, it would at least take a few hours.
Correct, correct. There is no way 1 lakh people did test drive in 30 minutes, right? So that's the customer's way of engaging with companies that have completely altered. And you got to meet the customers in whichever sales channel they want you to meet them in, right? And that meeting customer expectations also is how your employees will come along. Right. Now, meeting with pandemic was not a problem. We have tools that we always have had, collaboration tools, which we used. We went with it. Coming back to it, and I think I also want to point out that we're a manufacturing company.
Correct.
Only for a very short time we were not in the manufacturing plants. Then people have been back there. Office employees have had the flexibility of working from home. The collaboration tools provided that. But as we are coming back, we are returning back to the office. Okay. And there is a transition that everybody needs.
But you have to provide employees that flexibility.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. With the flexibility that is required. But what we are finding is that people want to come back. We want that water cooler chat back.
In fact, let's find out a little bit, Richa. I'm just going to come in here and ask Peter, because Peter, I understand that Jabra did a very interesting sort of survey and study about the hybrid, workplace, and what do employees really want. Just share with us some of those findings.
From a hybrid workplace, when we did a study recently, covered over 6 countries of office workers, we found something very interesting. Obviously, we are coming off this great work experiment of all times for 2 years, and now we are moving from a 100% almost remote from an office perspective into a hybrid or a flexible arrangement, right? So what we saw is 63% of the employees preferred hybrid.
Okay.
Yeah, while that is so, but only 45% actually did hybrid. Now, so it's funny, right? Because people are also worried. Over 55% of the people are worried that if they do hybrid, their careers will be impacted.
And that's primarily because they don't have the right tools, or?
Not exactly. It is basically because they are wondering, the organizations have not made it very clear that it doesn't matter where you work from, you will be treated and your performance will be evaluated on output and not where you are.
Deepu, how do you react to this kind of a finding where employees want to be working hybrid, but they find that they're not really able to work hybrid, and in fact they're almost being forced to come to office?
Yeah.
No, I think it's a very interesting, dichotomy that we are seeing. And that's because it depends on the stage of the employee life cycle that you are in. Let's take a new joiner. He hasn't built bonds, right? He's only interacting with people on digital collaboration tools. Such employees would love to come to the office. At the same time, let's look at some employees who went back to their hometown. They don't want to, come back to the office.
But Deepu, if I can just come in here, isn't it also a case of enabling those employees with the right technology, the right tools? How have you been able to do that as a company? Have you really understood the complete package requirement?
Absolutely, Paramita. I think the good thing about COVID is, it forced everyone to be agile. And we actually classified our employees into broadly two segments: customer-facing employees and non-customer-facing employees. Non-customer-facing employees in the office can use digital collaboration tools and carry out their work. Now, when it came to customer-facing employees, right, they need to, be in the field. So for them, lockdowns, they needed to figure out ways to cater to that. So initially, what they did, they enabled, their partners. So we enabled our partners. So for example, if somebody wanted to undergo training, come out with a quick, 2-minute, sound bite, send it over WhatsApp, right? The person looks at it, understands it. We made the entire transaction flow paperless. So people were able to carry out transactions using tabs and portals. And now as we get back into the hybrid world, we also find that, areas where you need to interact, right? To the point that we made, water cooler conversations, where you need to brainstorm, where you need to meet, customers for, very interesting business discussions, there people have come back.
Okay.
But some work can still continue remotely.
Dhaval, let me come to you here because Dhaval, you're from, looking at Piramal Enterprises, which is again a conglomerate like Mahindra, which Rucha represents. Doesn't it depend a lot also on the right technology, the right platforms, what are the tools you're giving employees, and also reskilling employees because they need to know how to use these new tools?
There are clearly two parts to this puzzle. One is the entire cultural aspect, I would say, and where all the points that he mentioned were about where people feared that they may not be treated at par if they are not in office vis-a-vis compared to somebody else. Or for example, there have been these manufacturing agencies or companies which have always thought that if you're not in office, you're not working. Right, and the second is the operational aspect of it, and the operational aspect largely covers two parts again, I think. One is enabling the people in terms of providing them with the right infrastructure, the right technology, the right tools, as you mentioned, and skilling them to be able to use it.
So do you think you've been successful so far?
I would say we've been reasonably or more than successful actually, because with us, we are also into the pharma business, which is a global business for us. And we have stakeholders who are spread across the globe. So the time zone factor was always there. And we were used to working, we are not working in person. We are always using the safe collaboration tools to be able to work beyond working hours, or to be able to share information, or to be able to, have a chat, sort out issues, even do workshops, for example.
Right.
So that aspect was always there. And just to complete that thought, the second part of the operational part is, it's regarding safeguarding the assets of your organization.
Absolutely.
That when you're using remote tools, there is this constant fear of, how the information is flowing, where is it going, how is it getting used. So the tools somewhere not only need to enable, but also need to safeguard what all is getting exchanged over these platforms.
So I'm hearing a lot, and Peter, let me come to you. I've heard a lot about, what should be done and what could be done. But what I'm also hearing, and this is also from other surveys, is that while companies want to go into the hybrid model, but while some are actually just extrapolating perhaps their existing infrastructure and doing a sort of a cut-paste job and then, pushing that out to their employees. But do you think at this point in time, given all the concerns, whether it's flexibility, empowering employees while also keeping their data secure, companies need to relook, especially CIOs, in terms of what should be their key priorities to transition into this new post-pandemic era?
You have nailed it, Paramita. Essentially, when we did this 2 years back, when we were literally forced to go and work at home, what we did was we retrofitted our processes. Right? And here is the time when we are moving into this new normal, evolving new normal. We call it a hybrid. That looks like it is going to stay. Various degrees depending on industries, but that's going to stay. So I think it's worthwhile taking a pause and relooking at the organizational culture and the processes, right? So do we want to be virtual first culture? If that is what you want to, then you start looking at your processes and changing. Then, for instance, when you talk about a person being comfortable working from home and is assured that his career will not be impacted, then you got to be able to tell, the leaders will have to put up a process which is an open performance appraisal, which says that you will be judged on output as opposed to where you're going to be working from. Like your managers need to be trained to remove the location bias, both conscious and unconscious bias. It's not that conscious saying you're not coming, I won't treat you well, even unconsciously, right? And it is very important to provide, as we were talking about, look at your technology, because we are not short of technology, and hats off to all these people here. When it happened, it happened as if nothing happened and everybody are working from home. I'm sure there would have been a little bit of blips, but nothing major earth-shaking happened, right? So they did their jobs, right? So technology is available. Now it is about re-looking at that and making sure if virtual first is the way you approach, you make those tweaking. For instance,
okay, I like that term, virtual first, and also preserving the culture of the company. How do you preserve the culture of the company? And I'm going to come to you, Rucha, with that question, but not before we take a short break. Very interesting questions, a lot of answers as well. You're watching our special show, CNBC-TV18 and Jabra present Making Hybrid Work. We'll be back in just a bit.